Press the button, my friend.
The Out of Bounds Show is live from the Whiskey 61 Lounge in the Bank Plus studio.
Check it out.
Oh, Tom Luginbill on the Patron Tequila guest line. We are the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone, made with 100% blue agave. Number one selling tequila in the world. Right here on the Out of Bounds Show. You can watch the show right now on YouTube. Search Out of Bounds Sports. And Tom Luginbill, National College Football Analyst with ESPN, joins us. All right, Tom Luginbill. We were talking about tailgating in the last segment, and you've been doing this for so long as a coach, was a player, coach, and analyst, and color analyst, sideline analyst. Have you ever tailgated at a college football game?
That is a really good question. And to my memory, I would probably just say off the top of my head, no. I've never, trying to think. I don't think I have. That's a really good question, Bo. And I should have. Like, I know I've been a part of tailgates as a kid.
Right.
Like when with my dad's teams, whether it's Arizona State or San Diego State, and over in NFL Europe, you see all the people get all excited. But no, I don't know if I've actually ever participated in one.
Well,
how sad is that?
Well, I thought about that about 10 minutes ago. I said, I don't think Tom Luginbill's ever tailgated at a game because he's always playing or coaching or working.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we've done it. So I've tailgated in Oxford, in the Grove, the Junction, Starkville, Tuscaloosa, Baton Rouge,
Sure.
Penn State, Ohio State game. We had some Penn State guys invite us up to that, and that's a totally different tailgate than down in the SEC. And Auburn, maybe a couple other areas, but I thought, think about it. You've never had a cold beer and like a rack of ribs at an SEC tailgate.
Right. No, never. Not one time.
Unbelievable. Well,
yeah, isn't that crazy?
It really is now that I think
now
about it.
You got me all depressed. I was feeling all good. I mean, I come on. I didn't realize I was on such a highfalutin show with the number one tequila in the world, taking care of business. And now you just remind me that I haven't experienced one of the greatest joys in life.
Well, we've done some serious tailgating over the years. We kind of got it good. We're in sports broadcasting and sports marketing, but we don't have to work on the weekends. So it's not a bad It's not a bad deal. Now, do we entertain clients, do things like that? Sure, but different deal from all the prep and things that you and your crew, your colleagues do as far as bebopping all over the country and doing all the meetings and stuff. But
let me ask you this, Bo, real quick.
Okay.
So with technology now, like you can pretty much pack up and do your show on the road anywhere now, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's go.
So my daughter started at Mississippi State last August, and Wendy and I started going up to Starkville on Thursday nights, and I would just do the show from Starkville on Friday. And as you know, the equipment is small and cool, and the engineers wire it up, and I just punch two buttons and I'm in.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome. There's going to be more of that for Bo Bounds' world, because my next one's I'm going back to back, Luke's. My next one, my youngest, is a senior in high school. He'll be in college in August. So there's going to be some longer beach weekends and football weekends like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I hear you, brother.
So, all right, I wanted to ask you this, too. Yesterday we got on a big keto CrossFit thing. Have you ever done keto or something like that diet, and do you do CrossFit?
No, so I've done the Atkins stuff, and I'm not a big sweet tooth. I'm not a big sugary guy.
Yeah.
My problem is in-season discipline versus out-of-season discipline. Like, you get me into the month of February, and from February to August, I'll get after it on the workout scene.
Mm-hmm.
But when I get into football season, I get so dialed in and I get so consumed with where I'm supposed to be, when I'm supposed to be there, what I've got to prepare for, radio, TV, travel, hotels, rental cars, that I do not do as good a job of taking care of myself as I should. But right in about 3 days from now is when I will start the Tommy Luginbill workout train. and I don't go like crazy. Like, I don't cut out alcohol or do this and that, but like I really don't do sugar. I try to avoid breads and pastas, but I will be far more into working out. Now, I did about 15 years ago. Do you remember the whole P90X fad?
Yes.
So I did that, and let me tell you something. I did that because so much of that thing is diet. It's not just the workout, it's diet. I did probably 70% of what they said to do to get maximum results, and I still got huge results.
Wow.
Huge. So that actually worked for me pretty good. And then CrossFit came along. I'm not that. Let me tell you something. If you're going to be a CrossFit person, you might as well just be on scholarship because it's grueling.
Yeah.
You don't want to do it, but somebody's making you do it, right? That's what everybody always says. My son's always like, why are you skipping leg day? I said, I'm not skipping leg day. I said, leg day stopped when I went off scholarship. That's when leg day stopped.
All right, now that you're getting into your workout routine, and this interview is brought to you by Fondren Fitness and Fondren. Lugs, how many days a week do you lift? How many days a week do you, like, walk or something? How does that work?
My cardio will consist of light walking, but probably 4 days a week of bands, tubes, and body resistance. I can do it all at my home.
Okay. Yeah. That's strong. That's good. All right.
So here's what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to take a picture of myself in like May, and I'm going to send it to you. I'm going to say, this is what's transpired between February and May, and you would not have wanted to see what November looked like.
Dude, I just went to what was the Outback Bowl. It's the ReliaQuest Bowl. I just flew down to Tampa to watch the Dogs in Illinois, and I ate like hell. And I don't do that, but I mean, I went to Burn's Steakhouse one night. I went to Malio's Steakhouse the next night, and a friend of mine was kind enough to invite me in a suite, and I smashed a bunch of food on game day. I mean, you can't do – it's virtually impossible when you're on the road.
It catches up with you, and you got catering at the production truck.
Yeah.
You go out and you have a crew meal on a Thursday when you arrive. Try to have a nice dinner and settle in on Friday night. And, you get the little vino, a little verb, and the next thing you know, you got some steak and some veggies. It starts adding up, man.
I know. Look, I don't ever eat in the press boxes because usually I'm tailgating. And I walked up to Raymond James. I know you've been there many a times, to the Buccaneer Stadium. And the spread that they had before the game was big time. So I fixed myself a plate.
Why not?
Yeah. And then I went in the suite and got a Tito's and club soda. But all right, so let's go to first of all, we had 2 awesome games, Tom Luginbill, over the weekend. And I think we need to embrace that because we like to complain and so on when we don't get the good semifinal games.
Well, we'd only had one. Until then, we'd only had one. It was Oklahoma, Georgia.
Yeah. Well, and so, Michigan TCU was a lot of fun. And Ohio State and Georgia was a ton of fun. Mm-hmm. And kudos to all 4 teams. And I thought, well, how about this? Out of the 2 games, was there one big takeaway for Tom Luginbill coming out of the national semifinal games going into the national championship game Monday night in L.A.?
Yeah, if you're a team with better talent and better depth, don't give TCU opportunities. And that's exactly what Michigan did.
Yeah.
Michigan helped TCU, right? And then TCU was savvy enough to take it and run with it and capitalize on it. And you've heard me say this 100 times, man. I mean, if you're outmanned and somebody's got better talent than you do, you need them to help you. That's just part of the deal. You need them to do something uncharacteristic to their nature. And then when they do, you have to capitalize on it. And I thought that the Michigan TCU game was a prime example of that, particularly in the first half.
talk about how bad Michigan was as far as red zone efficiency on offense, and you just can't
brutal.
do that.
You can't. And I'll say this. I think I might have said this to you last week or the week before. TCU has better players than people think they do. And I think they had better players than Michigan thought they did. They ran better. They were faster. And I think they surprised Michigan a little bit. And Michigan got flustered. They didn't seem like they were in rhythm. They were in sync. And, red zone offense now, I mean, that's what college football has become. You look at all the statistical data now where you'll see a team, this team's averaging 515 yards per game on offense, or this defense is allowing 493 yards per game on defense. But the team that on offense has 515 yards of total offense is 7-5, and the team that has 493 yards that they've given up on defense is 10-2. Right. Well, why is that? Because the game is played now between the 20 and the 20. People are going to go up and down the field on each other, bing, bang, boom, up and down. I mean, it's like following the tennis ball. But how you perform in the red area is what is defining college football now more than ever before. The field becomes condensed. You have less real estate that you have to defend, right? And now also you have analytics, right? Because coaches are now more prone. If it's 4th and 4, 4th and 3, 4th and 2, they're going to go for it. They're not going to kick the field goal. And so it's just interesting how all of the stats that always seem to have something to do with yards don't really mean anything anymore.
Okay. When you look at Tom Luginbill, national college football analyst with ESPN, he joins us on the Out of Bounds show. Georgia is playing 2011 Alabama football and playing it maybe better than Bama was during that 9, 10, 11 where they just absolutely physically dominated you. Talk about what Kirby and Monken and Scott Cochran and all these dudes are doing, because it looks like to me they're playing Bama football from 10 years ago, and I'm not sure we thought that could happen.
Well, they're doing it, but they're doing it with a much better athlete at quarterback, right? A better athlete than Greg McElroy, a better athlete than A.J. McCarron.
Right.
I think that's the other component to this. It probably gets hidden or gets glossed over a little bit, is Stetson Bennett athletically is way, way, way above average. He can get you out of trouble. He can extend plays. He can throw off platform. He can do all of these different types of things that maybe some of those quarterbacks at Alabama weren't overly capable of doing. And, it's interesting. We were on College Football Live earlier this week on Wednesday night, and we were kind of discussing why do people keep referring to Stetson Bennett as a walk-on? Why isn't he thought of amongst the greats and things of that nature? And my response was, well, first and foremost, wasn't he just invited to New York for the Heisman Trophy? So obviously he's being thought of as amongst the greats amongst some people. But at the end of the day, for as good a personnel as Georgia has, Stetson Bennett still has to do his job so they can do their job, right? I mean, he still has to make an assessment pre-snap. He has to make a progression post-snap. He has to come up with a positive result, all right? All of that stuff happens with him. So we do need to start giving him credit as a player for being a little bit more dynamic and maybe carrying a little bit more of the load than people have been willing to give him to this point, because he's a victim of his history. He's a victim of being a walk-on and then going to the junior college level and then coming back as a walk-on and then having to beat out JT Daniels and beat out Brock Vandervith, whoever it is. He's a victim of his own path, and that's unfortunate.
Okay, can you describe the difference between the Alabama signing class and the Georgia signing class this year?
An eyelash.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't even think that's so much the question. The question is, if the class Alabama signed was signed by anybody else, would it be considered on paper to be the greatest class ever? And I think the answer is yes. But because Alabama signed it and there's such an expectation, nobody looks at it that way. I mean, you're looking at a class that has the number 1 and number 2 running back, the number 1 defensive end, the number 2 offensive tackle, the number 1 JUCO receiver, the number 1 or 2 JUCO offensive tackle, the number 4 and 5 quarterback, I think I mentioned that, and 14 players in the class that rank at the top 5 of their position nationally. Now, what if that class was signed by LSU?
Mm-hmm.
Or that class was signed by Florida or Miami or USC? We would be lauding it just like we did the Texas A&M class last year in 2022. But because it's Alabama, and that's how spoiled fans have become. That's how much they maybe, I don't want to say don't appreciate it, but there's a lack of appreciation.
No, I see where you're going.
For the sustainability
Yeah.
of how hard this is to do.
No, I think you're onto something there. Tom Luginbill heads up recruiting for ESPN, National College Football Analyst on the Out of Bounds show. Is it the best class ever? It's a good question. So you do realize the meltdown that's going to happen in Tuscaloosa on Monday night, and Birmingham and Mobile and so on, Huntsville, if and when Georgia wins their second championship, but also back-to-back with someone that spent almost a decade in Tuscaloosa, right?
Yeah. I mean, you can have as much backlash as you want, but the lesson to be learned is if you go undefeated, you're in. If you lose once, you're likely in. If you lose twice, you're out, period. And let's not forget, and I had Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. That team's a really good football team. I don't think anybody in the college football playoff would want to play it. I really don't. But at the same time, that team is 2 plays away from being undefeated. They're also about 4 plays away from being 8-4. And so, you look at the back end of the A&M game, the back end of the Arkansas game, what they had to do to win that game, winning the Ole Miss game, the Texas game to start the season. People forget that was also a team that was they had their fair share of deficiencies, and they were sloppy. They were the most heavily penalized team Nick Saban had ever had. They were not disciplined. And I understand that if you look at them from a player perspective, do they match up better with Georgia than TCU? Absolutely they do. But they didn't do the things that you need to do to get in.
Yeah. You expecting a blowout?
Probably, yeah.
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 I think the run's over. Tip of the cap to Sonny Dykes, his coaches, his players. But I think Georgia's going to dominate. Line's 12.5. Tom Luginbill on the Out of Bounds show. I wouldn't be surprised if it's more than that. Late, it could get dicey there, especially if that front gets to Duggan. Ooh, eesh. All right. Let's switch to the Under Armour All-American game. Isaac Smith was just named. He signed with Mississippi State. He's out of Mississippi. You've already talked about him on the show a couple of times. He was just named the Gatorade Player of the Year. Would you talk about what you saw from Isaac Smith at the Under Armour All-American game?
Yeah, just a great week of preparation, a great week of doing what he's supposed to do, when he's supposed to do it, being where he's supposed to be, when he's supposed to be there. And that's really what this week is all about. Whether it's Isaac, whether it's any player, the game is fluff, right? But the week is structured to put these kids in a position to have to be accountable. And I think that's the most important thing that we do down there, in the sense that we give them a very, very clearly defined schedule, and then we treat them like men until they decide they don't want to act like one. And when you're late for treatment, or you're late for a meal, or you're late to get on the bus to go to Disney World, or you're late for a meeting, all right, then we all get on the meeting at the end of the day, and we say, okay, let's run down the roster. Who was a problem? Who wasn't a problem? Do we have an attitude issue? Do we have a body language issue? Do we have a guy who's not coachable? Do we have a guy that's continually late to meetings? who are we concerned about, right? And that's why and I tell people this all the time, and our rankings will reflect this, and fans will go nuts because they don't know some of the things that we know. So how do you have this guy ranked here, here, and here? Well, maybe, just maybe, I know something that you don't know.
Right.
And generally those things that have nothing to do with talent are what prevent a player from maximizing his potential and becoming who everybody's expecting him to become. Now, some can grow out of it. Some do not. Some it is just ingrained in them. There's others that the light goes on. They say, boy, I really screwed that up. I'm not going to let that happen again. And that's the evaluation of that week. And it's only 1 week, but it's amazing the amount of information. And again, we've seen so many of these kids at an Elite 11 camp, on an Under Armour camp,
Sure.
an Adidas camp. We see them all throughout, since they were sophomores in high school. But you start to see patterns. You start to see routines. And the reason why I bring all that up is because we never had any type of situation like that with Isaac, which is neat. I mean, that's good to have, good to hear. And but it is funny when I watch these kids, and we could line them all up against the wall, Bo, at the end of the week, and I could, for the most part, go, that guy's going to make it. That guy's not going to make it. That guy definitely is going to make it. This guy has a chance, but he's going to have to clean some things up.
Mm-hmm.
That guy's going to make it. That guy has no chance of making it. And for the most part, fairly being accurate. We're not going to be 100% right all the time on them. It's impossible to do. But because you have to account for maturity and growing up and the light going on. And then that's going to come. That's where the player development comes in, right? That's where when you get them, what is your influence on them? Can you get them to conform, to do things the way that you do within your institution, within your program? And there will be some that won't, and there will be some that will. And that's what Mario Cristobal is doing right now at Miami. He's making that environment so difficult that the kids that don't want to be there will walk out the door, and that's what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
So the ones that are left over are the ones that get it.
Yeah. Okay, and let's go to Aiden, and he's got too many lines in the den. He hired too many ex-head coaches. But Suntarine Perkins and Aiden Williams, so Isaac's going to Mississippi State. The other two are going to Ole Miss. What'd you see from those two? I got about a minute and a half, Luke's.
Yeah, both really, really good players. I think Williams is maybe not as quite college ready. Suntarine Perkins could play multiple positions. I think he could be an outside linebacker. I think he could end up being a strong safety. I also think he could be an outside receiver or a movement H-back. He's just so big and physical and fast. We played him at linebacker. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they do with him because he can play in multiple roles.
That's cool. Okay, so Luginbill was impressed with all three. Isaac Smith, Suntarine Perkins, and Aiden Williams, but really thinks Isaac and Suntarine could be ready to go sooner than later on the field. Tom Luginbill, thank you, buddy. We'll talk soon.
Appreciate you. Take care.
Tom Luginbill, national college football analyst with ESPN, has not done the keto diet. He joined us on the Patron Tequila guest line. If you're looking for super premium, 100% blue agave tequila, Patron Reposado, Patron Añejo, and Patron Extra Añejo. You can find it at Briarwood Wine and Spirits or in the wine and spirit store that you go to. Chad Bumpus at 9:30, wide receivers coach, Hell State.